The Fabelmans is directed by Steven Spielberg and stars Michelle Williams, Paul Dano, and among others. And this story is the semi-biographical film about Steven Spielberg's life in the view of the fictional family called the Fabelmans, where you have Sammy Fabelman, who starts out as a young boy that loves to go to the movies, and his father, played by Paul Dano, tries to get him to pretty much learn the different ways of how filmmaking works on the 8mm cameras. And he gets aspiration to become a filmmaker in his life. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Steven Spielberg. That I've been such a long time fan with a lot of his work, especially with a lot of his classics. Like Jaws, E.T., Jurassic Park. The list goes on. And this apparently was a passion project that he had, where he wanted to essentially tell his own life story about him essentially growing up and learning about how to learn filmmaking and everything. And I really do get a kick out of these kind of movies that deal with filmmaking, and especially ones that have to deal with when characters start out at a very young age and they get, as time goes on, and where they're trying to essentially, learn the basics of filmmaking, but also the themes that it also plays into. Like, something that reminded me of this was that movie Hugo that was directed by Martin Scorsese that came out, that I really loved, and I could see a lot of the comparisons with that film as well. And also you had the other movie that comes close to that was probably movies like The Disaster Artist and also Ed Wood, where you have filmmakers that basically never give up on their dreams and trying to make the movies as best as they can with everything that they have. And it also them trying to essentially balance out their personal lives as well. And so, upon seeing this film, I can honestly say this is definitely one of the best films of the year for me. I thought it was truly remarkable how this movie was not only being able to really showcase a lot of what Sammy goes through in order to try to learn the ways of filmmaking and, using the different cameras that he goes along with, but also just the whole family dynamic just really works in that you really get the feeling of there's a lot of things that the movie touches based on where his parents can have all the great things that you would expect them to give him advice on, but also it comes into some certain conflicts in the film that do make them feel like very flawed individuals, that plays it in a very three-dimensional way that I really appreciated, because it gives the characters a lot more conflicts that involve to where Sammy has to essentially overcome his odds throughout with not only his personal life with his parents, but also with his filmmaking dreams as well. And so the performances in this I thought were all fantastic, especially Michelle Williams. The other one being Paul Dano as well. I thought that he was not only very, remarkable, playing the very honest and trying to do what's best for his son, but also him not always doing things the right way because he's always busy with work and stuff and trying to balance it out. I like that they really go into that aspect with it, because it shows that he's not always 100% there, he's not always 100% staying in one place all the time, because where his family has to keep constantly moving and stuff. And it's just crazy that this has been the year of Paul Dano, especially when earlier this year he played one of the best villains in superhero films I've seen in a while, which was when he played the Riddler. And so going from that and going to something like this, you could really see the range that he goes through in this. And he's become one of my favorite actors in Hollywood. And then the other big standout for me, surprisingly, was the boy that played Sammy in his teenage years, played by Gabriel LaBelle. I thought not only was he very fantastic in trying to, going through the motions of trying to get through his life in high school, but also, him really going through everything and trying to keep his family life going and stuff. I thought was just very heartwarming and touching, especially with a lot of the scenes that carries with him and his mom and dad. And so that was great. And then, you also have, I got to give him credit to a lot of the production design in this, how it really captures a lot of the 50s era, and then when you get into some of the later stuff of the 60s, and just a lot of the ways that you see some of the stuff that they're filming certain scenes in, when Sammy is having to showcase at his school and everything, and just using his camera to go around and going like those old silent film cameras. It's very top-notch quality. And they got to give it another praise with the musical score in this. I thought this is one of John Williams' best film scores I've heard in a while. And, John Williams and Steven Spielberg, they're like bread and butter. They go just hand in hand. And it's very, not only whimsical, it's not only very heartwarming at times, but can also get pretty, very sweet, and does give you the emotional integrity that you would expect in this kind of movie, especially when it gets in the third act. And then the other aspects I can say too is that there is some other funny parts that I kind of liked the way the movie plays along, and I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything, but there's someone that shows up at the end of it that not only had a really good laugh out of me, but I thought it was really clever the way it played out, because if you know who this certain person shows up, you know they're who they are in real life and everything. That I thought that who they're portrayed by, that I thought was a really nice touch on Spielberg's part. And so there's more going to go into detail, but it is pretty much what you expect with this kind of movie that showcases a lot of seeing the childhood and coming of age tale work in that regard, with how you're not giving up on your dreams, pursuing what you are trying to do, makes it happen. And I think if I only have just any kind of minor cons, I will say that yes, there are some bullies in this that you kind of see like your typical movies where you have them always picking on the new guy and the kid that comes to school and stuff and things like that. But it didn't bother me too much because it's kind of what I kind of expected them to play out, where, you know, in this kind of narrative. And they actually do have they do have a good payoff with it toward the end that I thought was pretty good with its resolution. And then one of my other minor things is that there is something that does get resolved to parents toward the end, but I really feel like they could have been maybe showcase at least another extra scene that could have possibly, you know, tied up some different loose ends to the narrative that they were playing out with. But I can tell that they basically didn't want to do that because they wanted to try to focus the more aspects on Sammy and just where he's going with his career and stuff. And so that's just my little minor things. But other than that, I still had a great time with this movie, and it's definitely going to be one of the best movies I've seen all year. And with that, I'm going to give the movie a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So for those of you who have also seen the Fabelmans, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.